Rugby league is a sport of Australia, or at least in my eyes. It's full of passionate fans, phenomenal athletes and personalities, and in my eyes, is a very easy game to pick up and watch for the casual viewer. That said, there are 4 things with the sport that I would change or do to elevate the sport to the next level. This is something that has circulated the rugby league community a lot, or at least in the last few weeks in particular. A huge inspiration behind me even doing this video is my good friend and fellow rugby league content creator, Winston Neville. He's also featured on the podcast before. He explains this topic in depth far better than I ever could, so please go give his video a watch. It's very well put together and he really makes an amazing case for it. And I totally agree with him, especially as the NRL's goals is to tap into the US market. Okay, this is a bit more of a controversial one, but yes, we seriously need to consider about shortening the NRL season. This point will make a lot more sense in the future points that are about to come, but I'm seriously surprised we haven't already done this. Okay, so let me break down my reasoning a bit. Most rugby league fans would have seen this article titled, "Winners and Losers, Every NRL Team's Draw Ranked 1 to 17 as Wayne and Madge Handed Brutal Task." Okay, so what does this mean exactly? Well, the Canberra Raiders took the #1 spot for the statistically based off the 2024 season results, the easiest draw for 2025. Meanwhile, South Sydney received the bottom spot with the hardest draw, facing top 4 sides 4 more times in the regular season than that of the Canberra Raiders, and top 8 sides another 3 more times than that of the Raiders. What are we doing here? In what professional sporting code is that a thing? In the Premier League, you play 38 games accounting for every team twice, a fixture both home and away. Literally, in the NRLW, every team plays each other once. The solution is simple. Make it a 17-round season instead of 27, meaning each team only has 1 bye, and then each team only plays each other once, then finals on top of that. It's genuinely impossible to mess up. Plus, it makes that much sense in the first place. Yet again, another point that has been talked a lot about amongst the community over the last few years. But here's how I would do it. The State of Origin schedule this year for Game 1, 2 and 3 is May 28, June 18 and July 9. Each game roughly 3 weeks apart from each other around the month of June, whilst going between there and club football. Well, how about we make it a totally rep football month? I genuinely couldn't make any more sense. During the Origin period anyway, there's an excess of buys and reduced schedules to cater for these games. Teams are depleted, and to be honest, fans kind of lose interest around this time anyway, as Origin does take priority. Well, a rep round or month solves this issue. The regular club comp is put on pause while several rep games replace this schedule. See with my point before about a 17-week comp, then would extend to 21 weeks now with a rep month. So you don't lose that much football overall. Now say we take the month of June and we make it a complete rep football month. This is what I would do. Both teams select a squad of 30 players, catering for injury or changes that the teams might need for games 1, 2, and 3. They then go into Origin camp on Monday, June 2nd, ready for game 1 on Friday, the 13th of June. Game 2 would be on the 20th of June, and game 3 would end off rep round and would be on the 27th of June. But obviously you can't fill an entire month or rep football schedule with just Origin. So what do? You play game 1 of Women's Origin on Friday the 6th of June and then game 2 and 3 as preliminary games for the men's games 2 and 3. Then for the first 3 Saturdays of the month of June, you play New Zealand versus England in a best of 3 Origin style test game. It's an absolute no-brainer. Players that play for these nations can't even represent New South Wales or Queensland. And you can even do it for the same as women. Play a preliminary New Zealand and England game and back that up with the men's game. Now, this final suggestion is the only one that in my head doesn't make a lot of logic. It's more from a rugby league fan standpoint. Now, this one is the only one I can't see happening in a real world, and that is to bring back City Country, 4 p.m. on a Sunday kickoff, taking it back to the bush to towns like Dubbo, Orange, Albury. Like, it is simply rugby league heritage. It creates a talent pool for Origin. You can put young players in it that are coming up through the ranks. And I think as a motivation for players to give back to their communities, it's perfect. So, in my proposed rugby league schedule, this is how the month of June would look. So on the Friday, the 6th of June, you'd have the opener to the Women's Origin Series. Then the Saturday that followed it, for the 7th of June, you'd have New Zealand versus England. And then on the Sunday, the 8th of June, you'd have the first city versus country game. Going on to Friday, the 13th of June, you'd have Origin Women's Game 2, which would then be the preliminary game for the men's Game 1 on the Friday night. Then the Saturday, the 14th of June, would be England versus New Zealand Game 2. Then on taking it to the 15th of June on the Sunday, you'd have City versus Country Game 2. Taking it to the 20th of June on the Friday night, you'd have Women's Origin Game 3, followed by Men's Game 2. Then for the Saturday, the 21st of June, you have the final of 3 games between New Zealand and England. Then for the Sunday, the 22nd of June, you have City versus Country Game 3, followed by Friday, the 27th of June, rounding out the rep round, you'd have Men's Origin 3. In my opinion, that is a perfect rep round schedule. Tons of football, tons of quality. What is there not to love for the fans? Now, I can almost guarantee you people will be like,
well, you can't just stop the season to play another competition.
My response is, have you ever heard of an international break in football? Like, you think Messi won't just stop playing for his club to go represent Argentina if they need to qualify tournaments like the Copa America or the World Cup? Also, how about NBA All-Star Week? It's like one of the biggest weeks in the NBA calendar. They have tournaments like the three-point competition, the dunk competition. It is a major highlight for any NBA fan. Speaking of which, imagine during the rep round, we managed to get finally the long-awaited Rugby League men's 100-meter sprint as a special event. That would be insane. Well, another point people make is,
how about injuries? Clubs will just refuse to give their players up to rep football.
How is it any different to playing Origin? Like, you seriously think that's an argument? The only game where I can see this being an issue is City versus Country, as trying to motivate players to play that game when there's not really much of a prize or prestige on the line. But my solution to that would be, imagine if you tell players and tempt them that City versus Country is a bridging opportunity to wearing the sky blue jersey of New South Wales. Then I'm sure at least 90% of people that are asked will jump at the bit to be a part of that team. Now, it's no secret that every team in the NRL wants to be a part of the season opener in Vegas. Obviously, we had 4 fresh teams last year, 4 fresh teams this year. It's a huge opportunity to get new eyes on the game, but not only the game, but the club as well, trying to sell merchandise and crack a new market. Getting international fans to the NRL is seriously the next step that the game needs to take. And I think the next big step besides Vegas is taking advantage of this new 2026 NFL opportunity in Melbourne. Peter V'landys has the right connections in the right places to get a preliminary game for that NFL game in Melbourne, or even on the same weekend, getting American fans down under to watch the sport of rugby league. Like, it's seriously like, it couldn't have been married up better. Rugby league is that good of a sport. I consider it something people would travel for if marketed correctly, much like the EPL, NBA, even the UFC as of late. We've seen the successes across all these sports and how international and global they've gone. And that's all I had. This wasn't meant to be targeted at anyone. It's more of a suggestion from a fan standpoint. And as I said, the inspiration following Winston's video, I couldn't think of anything better than trying to add a few more suggestions to the list, because I feel like NRL has so much potential behind it and it's such good quality of a game, but it's not hit its ceiling yet, and it easily could in the next few years if marketed and sold correctly internationally. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.